Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to Sweet Remedy, episode number 17 of the B Graders. And as you can see, once again, I'm all by myself. Matt Tognini is in Italy still. Not only has he been wining and dining, having lunch with Jessica Allen, our favourite Orica rider, he went training with Eddy Merckx and Paolo Pezzo.
Up the front there is the greatest of all time. Riding in the black kit is Eddy Merckx, and he is leading this procession on the ride with Eddy Merckx prior to the LA Eddy Merckx Gran Fondo. He's out here with 500 of his closest friends, having a great time. It's not a bad day out, lovely weather. This is a terrible job I have here, having to take guests around to ride with the greatest of all time. It's fantastic fun. I forgot to mention that on this ride, riding next to Eddy Merckx, on the mountain bike up there, if you can just see her, is Paolo Pezzo, Sydney 2000 Olympic gold medalist in mountain biking. She owns a shop down in Bardolino. She is rarely there though, as she is the Italian female mountain biking coach, and she travels the world. But she's over there talking to Eddy, comparing war stories, telling Eddy how good she is, and I'm sure he's loving being regaled by the stories that she's telling him.
It's hard for some, isn't it? Big Eddy leading the way in the LA Eddy Merckx Gran Fondo, and Matt Tognini is right behind him. So, you know, all right, I don't get jealous about when Matt Tognini goes on holiday, because he goes on holiday more than anyone I know, except for maybe Hilton McMurdo. But I am jealous of the fact that Matt Tognini got to ride with the great Eddy Merckx. Good on you, Togs. The Masters were at Casuarina this week, and they had a little bit of a difference of opinion with the commissaire Bob Eddy. Bob Eddy did a very good job at the weekend. We have to race on the left-hand side of the road in all of our racing traffic conditions. A grade, meandered over the other side at one point. Bob Eddy was the commissaire. He stopped the bike race. Yes, he stopped the bike race, told them what they have to do to be able to keep these courses and for us to be able to use these courses as much as we can. A grade got started again and the race went on. However, B grade did the same thing. They came around the corner, overlapped the right-hand side of the road. Bob Eddy stopped the race again. Well done to Bob Eddy. He is a man of his word. He is trying to protect the courses that we're racing on. Best wishes to Michael Andrew, Elite Racing Cycles rider in the B grade sprint. Ran into the back of Paul Proddy's back wheel and he went down quite hard in the finishing sprint. But other than that, it was great racing. This week, the Masters are going to go to Mount Helena. So back to the hills for the Sam Smiths and Johnny Greggs of this world. This weekend will be a tough one. Big mention now to one of the strongest men in WA triathlon and cycling, Matt Burton. He's an absolute animal of a bike rider, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet off a bike. But he rode the Atta 20k at Champion Lakes the other day. Not only did he do the fastest time, he did the fastest 2 times, because it wasn't good enough for Matty to ride one 20k time trial. He rode 2 20k time trials back to back, and he set the fastest 2 times, I think somewhere in the region of 47 kilometres an hour. Well done to Matty Burton. If you want to see a man really know how to ride a time trial bike, he's your guy. We have a special guest here today, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be introducing you to him in just a moment. As promised, ladies and gentlemen, the man himself, Henk Vogels. Welcome to the B Graders, mate. I got to say, I've known this bloke since the day I was born in 1973, and I'm still starstruck, mate. I'm sitting next to the man.
Yeah.
Mate, welcome.
I'm just one of the boys, Matty.
You
You
are
know
just
that,
one of the
and
boys.
I have always been just one of the boys.
Yes.
So it's good to be back in Perth, mate.
So what are you doing? What are you doing back in Perth? We see you a little bit like once a month now. What are you up to?
Well, I get to come back to Perth every 6 weeks. I work for a company called FRF Sports, so sell some beautiful cycling equipment, Colnago and Fulcrum, Michelin, Pioneer, all that kind of stuff. And I do some stuff with Bike Bug as well as an ambassador, so I get a free rig from them, a beautiful Colnago concept and some nice wheels. So I'm pretty tied up in that whole area there of repping in Queensland and WA. It's not the only thing I do. I do some stuff with SBS, heading over to the Tour de France here in
Going again, yeah.
in a couple of weeks. Going to do some stuff with Velo Tours. Kerry Stubbs and his crew from the Gold Coast, they're running a Tour de France tour, so I do that and then go into the Tour de France. And hopefully when I get there, mate, I can interview Richie Porte in the yellow jersey, because he's looking all right, isn't he?
A race you've ridden in the past?
Oh, I haven't actually done it. I didn't do the Dauphiné Libre because the Dauphiné was always the climbing race. So if there was a race, we'd do Luxembourg or Tour of Switzerland before
as
the Tour de France.
As a lead up to going to the Tour.
Yeah, most sprinters will do Tour of Swiss. Climbers go and do Dauphiné Libre because that is their big test. And I think the last 10 years, just about everyone that's won Dauphiné wins the Tour.
So, just on that one, we saw Richie is on the form of his life this year. There's no doubt about that. Froome's subpar, but not too far away, I don't think, personally. But then Fulsang and Aru, a bit of a 1-2 punch. What do you reckon? The one thing I like about this bloke, ladies and gentlemen, is he proudly says it, and if he's wrong, he still backs himself. Yeah. So what do you reckon?
Well, I reckon he's the big favourite. And like everyone else is saying right now, he doesn't have the team at the moment. I mean, he's probably going to get some fresh horses with Rowan Dennis coming in. I think Caruso will be better as a team. But it's wide open because Froome's not dominating. And then you have the 1-2 punch with Jakob Fuglsang and Aru. Contador will be there.
Valverde.
And Valverde. So there's that whole crew of 6 or 7 guys could win the Tour. The only problem with Richie is that his team isn't as strong as it should be right now, so he's going to need them to pull something out of their backside, otherwise he's going to struggle in the third week in the Tour. But his time trialling's got better, and it looks as though he's done more work on his climbing. So, I mean, if he gets 10% better from last year for TTing, I think he can be Australia's next Cadel Evans and be the second Australian to win the Tour de France, because the guy's on. I mean, he's at his prime, but unfortunately, if he was in Sky right now, he would be going in
as
the Tour de France as the Tour favourite, and then they would have that card to play. But Richie's gone out there and unfortunately doesn't have the strong team, so it's going to be a real battle for him to win the Tour this year. But he's definitely gone another notch up. It's just whether his timing's right, Matt. I just don't know. We've got 3 good weeks to 4 weeks before we hit mountains. So, but pretty excited to get over there for to see how we can go, because we could see a second winner.
It would be nice. It certainly would be nice. It'd be good to see it in BMC again. Like, they're doing something well for Australian cycling. Got young Scottson in there as well. Another Australian who suddenly hit his straps overnight, Michael Matthews, Bling, riding for Sunweb now, put away Sagan in the stage of the Tour of Swiss last night. He
did, and he is so good at those hard stages. He can sprint, and when it's hard, he's your favourite with Sagan. I mean, he's beaten him before in hard races like that. I mean, there's 3 guys at that level: Matthews, Sagan and Van Avermaet. When it's hard and there's 40 or 50 guys left, pencil Michael Matthews in. He's had a really quiet start of the year. Didn't really do Down Under or any of those classics. He came into Amstel, was good there. He's now backing it up, so now he's actually going to be, this is his time for the Tour. He won last year in Orica Green Edge in the stage, where there was 3 in a group of 7, including WA's Luke Durbridge. Expect big things, 1 or 2 stage wins for Michael Matthews, because everything hinges on the Tour for him this year.
And of course, it's a different year this year. Cavendish is going to the Tour, but he's not been well. Renshaw the same, he's not been well. Kittel is setting himself on the Tour, but we wouldn't expect Kittel to be the man, say, the third week getting the green jersey. So there's a chance for Matthews in the green jersey this year with 1 or 2 guys already ridden the Giro, and that was their focal point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be completely honest with you. No one's beaten Sagan in the green. No one, seriously, mate. No one's within the finishing straight of him. I mean, he will get over all the climbs. He will snivel for 3rd, 4th, 5th for points out on the road, whereas Matthews will just want a stage win. So count him out of the green jersey, lock him in for 1 to 2 stage wins. Sagan's got that. They might as well just print his name on the jersey now, mate. That's how good he is. So, and we all know that. Everyone knows that. Zabel won 5 of them as well. Yeah. So, that was when he was good. Sagan's another level when it comes to that. Matthews wants to impress in his new teams, just won a stage of Swiss. So lock him in for a few stage wins.
You've ridden the Tour, you've ridden the Vuelta, you've ridden the Giro. How different is riding a Grand Tour compared to everything else you do in the sport of cycling? How much harder is it, the 3-week tour?
It's ridiculous. I mean, nowadays we have two rest days. When I raced in the mid-90s in the Vuelta and the Tour de France and the early Armstrong era, one rest day, different average speed, different petrol. You know, those guys were out of control how fast they were riding. Nowadays, I think it's a much better playing field here we have now, but it's filthy when you do these 3-week stage races. I mean, I still wake up sometimes hearing that grrr, psh, you know, that compressor of they're putting air in the tyres in the morning, and you got to get up and you're stage 17. Mate, I've had Swan Years come and sit at the breakfast table making sure we ate our massive bowl of pasta. You're just so tired, you don't want to eat anymore. So big respect for those guys that ride the GC and the Tour, because they are the elite of the elite in endurance cycling. So
you've raced into the Champs-Élysées, final corner of the Champs-Élysées, up for the sprint finish, and finished top 5 from memory.
Third,
there you go, sorry, podium finish. What is the elation like to be there on that final day and know you've got the legs to have a run for the sprint?
Yeah, I mean, when I was third on the Champs-Élysées in 97, which is actually 20-year anniversary this year, I remember that was my first Grand Tour that I finished in the Tour de France, and it went from almost tears coming on the Champs-Élysées because you've finished the Tour, it's a massive accomplishment, to then sprinting to third. I actually punched and had a wheel change and sat on the back of the car for a full lap at 70 plus k an hour, and then came back on and got third. And then there was a naked streaker that ran down. That's right. Google it. Yep. There's a naked,
I remember.
naked dude kept riding down there. It was crazy. It was crazy days, but yeah, awesome feeling. When you finish your tour, it's amazing. But when you finish on the podium up there with Zabel, was pretty impressive. And you know, some of my best memories, obviously, riding in the Champs-Élysées of my time in Europe, because I spent half of my career in the US and half in Europe, and that's one that really sticks out as a great memory for me, for sure.
You're an Olympian. You started with the Charlie Walsh era of teams pursuit squads. You rode the Olympics as a roadie. You're Australian road champion. You won the US Pro title, which used to be held, which was one of the biggest races, one-day races in America back in the day. Second in Ghent Wevelgem. But one of the things that impresses me about guys like yourself is you were the son of a gun, and to step out of that shadow of having a father who was, let's be honest, Henk Vogels Sr. was regarded as the hardest man in Australian cycling for many, many years. What was it like coming forward from Southern District Cycling Club back in those days and coming out of the shadow of Henk?
I mean, I had some issues when I was a junior, because a couple of the Eastern Staters always thought that I was selected because of my dad, because he was a national selector in that time. He actually even selected you for a world championships back in the day.
And in Oceanias. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, but I've just proved them wrong, you know, getting a medal in the Worlds, and from then on in, you know, I kind of wrote my own story after that, you know, through the Charlie Walsh era, and then got out of there quickly and went to now Heiko's. Heiko ran the road program back then. He's the man who's behind Sky at the moment. He's the genius, probably the most successful cycling coach in history. I was very lucky. He was my mentor, that I got to spend 2 years with him. But I never really thought of Worlds and Olympics as a pinnacle. I always thought of Tour de France and Tour of Flanders, Ghent Wevelgem, Paris-Roubaix. They were the races that I always wanted to do since I was 13, 14 years old, riding around Canning Vale and Pickering Brook with the Southern District Cycling Club back in the early 80s. So for me, it was all about being a pro cyclist and not medals. That really didn't interest me. Being a world champion or an Olympic champion, for me, it was always about being a professional cyclist in Europe, and that's always was my goal. And to get there early in my career and enjoy the second half of my career in Europe, and then coming back to Europe. I mean, I was very blessed. I got 16 years pro, which is, it's hard to turn pro, Matt. It's harder to stay pro.
Very much
Believe me. So,
mate, you've ridden with some of the best, obviously, over 16 years. You rode through the Armstrong era, but teammates, Stewie, Jens, who are the best guys? Who are the most professional guys that you raced with?
I went through a lot of very good bike riders. O'Grady was just a beast, you know, physically 92 plus VO2 max at 17, 18 years old. Magnus Backstead, he was incredible in the classics. Eros Poli, nearly a 7-foot Italian, you know, who taught us how to ride echelons. Jens Voigt was obviously just raw power and just guts. So you know, I was lucky to have guys like Baden Cook who were coming up when I was finishing, and you know, Brad McGee, guys like that. You know, I also got the best of the American guys too, and Gord Fraser, who won 200 plus races. But I mean, Robbie McEwen was the ultimate professional. He's still our most successful bike rider, I think, in history. Who's won more bike races, I should say, than anyone else in Australia. So I was lucky because I went from an endurance time trialist, team time trialist, to then a classics rider and a sprinter, lead out man, to finish my career back in the States, winning massive crits. So, you know, I was lucky and blessed to get both sides of the continent to do all forms of cycling, you know, whether it be track, 100k teams, time trial, sprinting, classics, the whole lot. So got some amazing guys, and you feed off all of them and you learn a little bit off every one of them.
I've got to agree with you about McEwen. I lived in Queensland for a couple of years, and McEwen was a part of the amateur squad we're in. And what Hank says about the professionalism of the guy, it didn't change when he turned pro. He was that professional before he even won anything as an A grader, before he was even state road champion. The one thing I say, people ask me about him, and I say, his attention to detail. He was meticulous as an A grader. He had a single-minded vision that he was going to get to where he was going to get, and that was all there was to it. And no one was going to stand in his way. Very much like yourself. What changes have you seen in the last 20 years? Let's not worry about the last 20 years. Since you've retired as a pro, you know, you've gone through that period of becoming the unfit, I'm done pro, to now bouncing back to being the man on TV, the guy who gives the special comments and you know what you're talking about and people listen to what you say. What changes have you seen in cycling that you like, but more importantly, what have you seen that you're not that struck on?
I mean, the big changes that I notice is now it's much more scientific. The sport's a little, I wouldn't say robotic, but everyone talks about numbers, and you know, Team Sky is all about scientifics and the marginal gains. I believe in some of that, but I think that, you know, the sport is as brutal as it always has been. And I think that...
So once the flag drops, it's man-o, man-o.
It is. And we've seen some great racing, especially in just this last week in the Dauphiné, it was man-on-man. And I love to see that. I'm not a massive fan of numbers. I think once you're in that race, you should turn those numbers off and use the ticker and the brain and racecraft. You still do see that, but that's one thing I don't enjoy is the directors, you know, they're literally on the radio telling a bike rider how to be a bike rider. That's what I don't like. And being a DS, I know how easy it can get. But I'd like to, I mean, the sport isn't a very, very tough, blue-collared, crazy, you know, public, all-in sport where you can run with the riders. And I like to see that bravado and, you know, the Jens type, you know, shut-up legs attitude. But, you know, so yeah, the scientific changes. Obviously now everyone talks about watts and, you know, what their numbers are and all incredible numbers and Strava and everything. We never had anything like that. It was just get on the bike and show them what you got. But not a huge amount of changes really in the sport. A little bit more aerodynamics, more scientific, but still is a great sport that you can go out there and race on pre-war roads in the cobbles, and the mountains haven't changed. They're still as steep as they are, but I'd like to see the sport change a little bit more and profit share with television stations so we can make it even more global. Right now we're still living in the 60s when it comes to that. I think that all the professionals, they don't get a cent to do the Tour de France. I mean, that's just mind-boggling that you can turn up the Tour and not get paid to do it. You're paid by your team, but so what? Whereas you see a regional golf tournament where they make hundreds of thousands of dollars to run 20th. Come on. So cycling needs to change in that area quickly.
Folks, as you know, we're always in a live cafe, so we've got one or two noises going on in the background. We're just having an argument about cupcake and who gets the slide next. Mate, the Gran Fondo ride, the Cyclo Sportives, that's the big change that's happened. Now, good thing for cycling to get bums on seats, people out on bikes, but could that possibly, do you think, detract from domestic racing in the future down the track, or is it just better to have people on bikes?
I think it's great to have people on bikes. Cycling's not for everyone. It's a hard sport. I mean, you absolutely have to put everything on the line, whether it's a local crit or Three Peaks. So it's great to have, you know, a huge amount of people, whether they're, 15 or 80 riding their bikes. But I'd love to see a little bit more as far as race promotion is concerned, because this is a golden era for cycling in Australia. And we've had Cadell, we've now got Ritchie. We should be having more races, but being in Australia, it's a little harder for Euros to come back down to Oz. But it is a global sport. But I would like to see more racing, obviously, and that comes with money. So you've got to have those big sponsors that want to put in and see value in domestic cycling or international races in Australia. And when that happens, then our sport will grow. But it's great to have bums on seats, and so it's really, in the 80s, if you wore Lycra, you're a honk. But now it's normal. They're full of cappies. So it's more mainstream and acceptable now, and that's great that Australia's embraced cycling. But I'd love to see some more racing.
2 questions, and then an announcement about a Legends race that we're doing a bit later in the year. What's your best win ever?
I would have to say winning the US Pro Championship in front of 350,000 people. And that's the US Pro Road Championship, over 250k, tacked 10 times and won solo in front of Hincapie and guys like that. So that was massive. The Australian National Road Champion, Pro Road Championships in '99 was massive. They're probably the 2 that stick out. But, as far as accomplishments, just getting back on the bike after having a massive touchdown was something that I felt was huge in for me, not personally as an accolade, but someone to come back from a wheelchair, broken neck and smashed ankle to lead McEwen out to 6 Giro stage wins in 2 years. That was a huge accomplishment.
Sort of leads me to my next question. What was your hardest day ever on the bike, other than your crash?
Well, a lot of people think that Paris-Roubaix is the hardest race in the world, but being a non-climber, for me, no one real day sticks out as much as probably doing Liège-Bastogne-Liège, a climbers classic at the speed that they do those 2 to 4 kilometre climbs in big chainring in the 90s. That was the hardest day for me, but about 100 of them in the mountains. So can you condense 100 into one? Because being a sprinter going through the Dolomites up the Mortirolo, Stelvio Gavia, racing that. It's just beautiful as a tourist, a rider, but when you're racing it with Basso and Pantani and guys like that, it was just crazy. So nothing really sticks out there. Cycling's a brutal, suffering, agonising sport.
Suffers the most, gets the best result.
And that's right. Yeah. So, that's what's beautiful about it, is that it's a hard man sport, and it doesn't matter how big your VO2 is, mate, you just still got to be able to suffer.
Don't want to suffer on the day, it's not going to happen. Folks, a few weeks ago we mentioned on the show that we're going to the Claremont Showgrounds in November 18. Last year we had GB's Last Lap, Graham Brown's retirement race. This year we're calling it GB's Supercrit, and one of the events that we're going to have there this year going to include a couple of blokes. We're having the Legends Supercrit preceding the GB Supercrit, and this man's going to be on the start line along with a couple of old legends. Those names will be out very shortly over the coming weeks. You'll be able to see them on the Facebook page. I'm looking forward to seeing you race around there. There's a few boys, maybe Eddy Hollands and Chris Brown, who are looking forward to seeing that as well, mate.
Oh, my old sparring partners back in, went to Europe back in 1988 together. No, legends of the sport, old Eddy Hollands and guys like Chris Brown and his whole family and yourself and everyone else. So, no, I just would like to... For me, mostly it's about just the camaraderie of the boys. Yeah. It's not bragging rights, even though Eddy would probably be out in the ergo right now that he's seen this video.
No, he's actually out. He's in Singapore today on holiday with the fam, but when he sees this, he might be on the bike.
No, I'm actually thinking of having a crack at the Masters Nationals on the Gold Coast.
On the Gold Coast?
Yeah, because they're up my way. I live in Maroochydore now, so... I've done the course and it's only got a hill that I can drag my fat ass over, so I'm probably going to give it a crack so I can drive down there. So.
The thing is, Eddy Hollands saw it was on the Gold Coast, and a mate of ours, Shane Seegers, Shaggy from back in the day, he lives on the course, and Eddy sent me and Brownie a message and said, hey, Brownie's off work, then you can get your fat ass back on the bike and go training, and we'll go up there, so you might see a few of us. Might be a good week, actually.
We can all sit in the convoy together and chop off on the climb so we can all get back. So you're going to need to do it, that's for sure.
And if we all get dropped, we can just sit there and drink beer and just tell each other how good we were.
Oh, that's right. It's a lovely course too. It's got, been repaved.
Is it hard
and
enough for a Commonwealth Games?
It is hard enough. It's
Yep.
The climb goes up in 3 steps, so you'd probably big chain ring the first bit and probably 42.15 the second bit, and then 42.39.17 the last bit, or if you're really going. So
for
there's
me,
3
at the
knots.
Nationals, I need 36.15, 36.19, 36.17.
Maybe bike change halfway up.
No, if you're there, you can give me a push, like,
No.
time's sake.
Mate, you're old. You're in the next group up, mate. I'm 40 to 45. You're being 45 this year.
Oh, there we go. He's going to drop that one on me. Thanks for not calling me bald. Ladies and gentlemen, Henk Vogels with us this week. We will see you next week when I'll be joined by the legend of the show, Matt Tognini. Thanks, mate.
No worries, mate. Pleasure to be here as always.
Good on you.